Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts 3 playthrough. So, all fun and games, eh? We're going to switch over to the Wheel of Fate because it is amazing! And I love it. It's easily one of the best Keyblades in the game, as I said. And I am going to be using it a lot. I think pretty much for most people, the Wheel of Fate is their go-to Keyblade for the end game if they haven't managed to get Ultimate Weapon. I mean, the other two Keyblades that I would probably recommend for the end game, oh boy, we've got a lot of lucky emblems to pick up. Oh joy. And I think we've got a lot of treasure chests to pick up as well. Yep. Nice old 41 of them. We're going to be here for a while. But yes, the only other two Keyblades that I would say are probably of major use in terms of their power is the one that you get for completing the menu at the bistro, and the one that you get for getting a high score on every single one of the Classic Kingdom mini-games. I'd say both of those Keyblades are quite powerful as well. But Highwind is still spectacular. Obviously the best Keyblade in the game is Ultimate Weapon, but those three are sort of your other really good hitters in the grand scheme of things. So, obviously, as with everything else that we have enjoyed, we're going right back on into the world to have some fun. And do all the exploring and treasure chest hunting and lucky emblem hunting that comes with everything. And actually, this is where I would say that this world actually comes into its own. Because prior to this, I would say that the Caribbean is easily the weakest, or one of the weakest worlds in the game with relation to its narrative. As I said, because Sora, Donald and Goofy are sort of basically sent on a wild goose chase out of the way. Sure, Jack's there, but it's not really Jack. All the events of the film effectively happen away from Sora and Co, and they only come in right at the end of the film, and while they are obviously involved in a bit of the battle, and they're there with the Davy Jones fight and Will dying, and there's a whole nice little mention of Sora going like, "You don't know what love is. Love's not that easily destroyed, yeah, etc. Like bonds of the heart and all that jazz." But I think what sort of frustrates me is that, yeah, it just sort of, it's so little involvement. Especially considering Sora and Donald and Goofy know Elizabeth, Will, Jack, Barbossa, etc. And I think that there are various other bits of the At Walt's End film that they could have participated in. Like, imagine them being part of that parlay scene on the sandbar. Imagine sort of actually getting to see the Brotherhood of Pirates, like when they go to stuff and they see Jack's dad and all that jazz. Like, there are a lot of cool things that Sora and Co could have been involved in, but just are not. And as I believe I've said before, I think what frustrates me is that a lot of the issues that are here, they are present in Arendelle, do not get me wrong, but I don't think that people have criticised this world quite as harshly as Arendelle, despite the fact that they are exactly the same issues, and arguably I would say a bit worse here. because in terms of the narrative, there is a lot more opportunity for Sora and co to be involved, whereas I'd say in Frozen you are probably a lot more limited in terms of moments that are KH involvement suitable. And I think the other thing is that most worlds effectively allow you to explore most of it as you go through the story. It's largely because most of them are just a linear pathway through. I mean, I think the only one that so far that has not been pretty much entirely linear is Toy Box. And that's just because you have that big central hub structure of Galaxy Toys, and you sort of go pretty much in a linear order around that, but you could theoretically go to anywhere within it. So this is the first real point that is really of any sense not... well, it is entirely open, but I don't think that the game does a good enough job at giving you a reason to explore, and doesn't give you a good enough reason of, like, or a good enough indicator of what it expects from you before you go into Shipwreck Cove. Because I'm pretty sure that I was a bit underleveled for it, but then obviously I managed to get through it. It was just a sort of test of skill, but it's sort of like it just kind of goes, here you go, you can go to the end now, do what you like. And I'm kind of sat there just going, but you've given me this whole map to explore and you don't want me to explore any of it? So yes, that frustrates me. And Elizabeth's voice actor frustrates me because some of the most epic and powerful scenes from the original film that are replicated here. I mean, Elizabeth's speech is a really cool moment in the film. I mean, Elizabeth's arc throughout at World's End is quite cool, because it's that whole thing of the woman who pretty much for most of the first film was damsel in distress, trying not to be damsel in distress, but she was, becoming a force to be reckoned with in her own right, something that ultimately Kairi could have learned a lesson from. But it was a powerful moment, and I just feel that it ends up being really quite diminished by really bad voice acting.
Say, Jack, you are the real Jack, aren't you? I wanna run some crabs. Crabs? Full speed.
Also, that's just a weird conversation to be having with anybody.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, just all sorts of confusion be brought up from that. But yeah, so you had that, and then you had obviously Will's death and becoming captain of the Flying Dutchman, which is also a really powerful moment, but
they're made of sturdy stuff, those.
I don't think that... I think it's quite quick, actually.
I was attending to.
And then you have the line reads from Elizabeth in that, just not great. And I think what also frustrates me is that they do the whole thing of something happened off screen that is important, but we didn't show you because of reasons. Basically, think of the reveal of Flynn Rider's name as Eugene Fitzherbert. Off screen, doesn't matter, but actually quite important because when they're in the tower, Rapunzel calls him by Eugene, and nobody bats an eyelid because obviously, kind of stabbed nearly to death. but it's a scene that creates a seeming plot hole or a bit of the plot that feels missing. And we have the same here with Will and Elizabeth's marriage, because I mean that is another of the really iconic moments of At World's End, having Captain Barbossa marry them on the ship whilst they're fighting. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that actually the title of the song that plays during that whole sequence is something along the lines of "Isn't there a better time to be doing this?" And actually, I'm going to double check that that is indeed the case, because I'm pretty sure that it is. Or at least it's something very similar to that, shall we say. And that is if my internet can go a little bit quicker. So yeah, it's called I Don't Think Now Is the Best Time, which it is an iconic moment, and it's just completely missing. And I think that that would have been a really awesome moment to see and have Sora and Kobe present, because it sort of sounds like they were present during that. Because Goofy's just like, you should have seen Will and Elizabeth and so on and so forth. It just, yeah. I just wish it was there. And I'm just climbing as high up as I can. I wanted to sort of, get to the top, because I thought there was something there that there's not. But I did want to try. Something else that I am frustrated about is I really wanted the thing to be able to sort of stab the map to say this is where I'm going, and have that, but hey, that's not there. But now that I've had my 12 minutes or so of just moaning about the Caribbean, I did say that this is the point of the Caribbean where actually it becomes a really quite enjoyable world. Because you've got nothing pushing you forward, and this is the point where you can feel, yes, let's just explore. I want to go see every island, I want to sort of try and find all the treasure chests, all the lucky emblems, etc. And when it opens up...
Tell us more about the pirate code, Jack.
It's just it's a lot more enjoyable. And a lot more exciting.
Guess that means we should just follow your
Because
I quite like the sound of that.
you just sort of, it's just the freedom of it, because I mean it's a big map, and there is something to do on pretty much all of these islands. Some are definitely better than others in terms of what you can do on them, but in general it's a really fun chance to just let loose and explore. I think it's part of the reason why like Wind Waker was fun, except I would say that there's... Well, I say there's maybe a bit more to do here, probably about the same in terms of if you compare map size and what's actually in the world. I'd say this is probably a bit smaller than, or quite a bit smaller than Wind Waker's map, and definitely in terms of what you can do in the map. But I'd say that it's still filled enough that you're never without, and you can also traverse the map relatively quickly in comparison to, say, Wind Waker. Like, you're not going to be sitting trying to get across this entire ocean for ages. So, even though there's not variety in terms of the water stuff, because it's basically just fighting ships and trying to make it to the next island, it's enough to sort of go through this. Although that said, there are, I think, 2 ship fights that you can do that are really quite unpleasant. Because they have ships that are really stupidly powerful, and they are very likely to bring about your doom. Also, I will say that this particular island is very good for picking up crabs. That still sounds ridiculously wrong every single time I say it. Annoyingly, it is still true. Because you've got a lot of these barrels that have got them in. And obviously smashing them up means that you get the crabs. Now, you are very unlikely to be able to get the Leviathan up to its kind of best level by the time sort of you're finished with the area. Like, I tried to get up to level 9, but I basically managed to get pretty much every single crab that I could get my hands on, and I still had to do a bit of grinding after the fact. So you don't worry, you will see, well, I say you'll see fully leveled up Leviathan. I mean, you will do, but you're not going to get really that much out of it. But one of the cool things that does happen is if you manage to fully level up the Leviathan, you actually are able to switch over to the Black Pearl if you so choose to. And you can do that at Port Royal. So it's a nice fun little option that you have. Not that, you know, you'll have much of a reason to do that once you've, you know, fully leveled up Leviathan, because you'll have probably explored most of the world by that point and have very little else to gain. Another ways that you can probably speed up picking up everything that you need to is trying to go into the water a bit more. It's something that I really don't do as much as I probably should do, because there are obviously crabs under the sea. And a lot of the crabs do try and run to the sea if you don't manage to defeat them. So it is very much a case of just keeping an eye on things. And also, it's very easy to miss chests on the beach, especially when, you know, there's a whole bunch of debris everywhere. Because you look at it and you just go, oh, I thought that was just like a crate that I couldn't do anything with. But it's just like, no, that was a chest. It's that whole sort of washed out thing that the world has going on, which ultimately does make it look a lot more like the original Pirates of the Caribbean films. But I think it is something that some people do find a little bit frustrating about the world, I suppose. But it's something that I am fine with. But yeah, if I'm being honest, I probably would have switched out the Caribbean for Agrabah to have, you know, King of Thieves do an Aladdin trilogy, just as, you know, we had effectively the trilogy of of Hercules. I think that would have been a very fitting way to go about it. That said, I do understand why they decided to go with Pirates, because the last time they did Pirates, it did not go down particularly well. And it's largely because it just didn't fit. visually, it just did not match up. It was just way too dark. Visually dark, not dark as in the subject matter. Although, I suppose it is a bit dark. So you had sort of all those things going on, and yeah. So it makes sense that they wanted a bit of redemption from that. I mean, I certainly would have seeked it as well. But... and also, it is very different to all of the other worlds in the game. So it makes it stand out. Because there is not another world like it. And that is something that you really do want when you're trying to create a game with various levels. I think it is in part why we don't visit the village bit of Arendelle, because that would sort of end up making it slightly too similar to Kingdom of Corona. Same with exploring the rest of 100 Acre Wood. You got a wooded area in Kingdom of Corona. Once again, ending up a little bit too similar. And you want that variety going on. Because at the end of the day, every single world in Kingdom Hearts 3 is unique in terms of its visual style, its sort of world concept, I suppose. And I think because of that, it does a lot better than probably most of the previous games in that sense. I mean, I'd say that actually it's probably one of the strongest sets of worlds that the KH series has ever had, really. Because even though I am not the biggest fan of the Caribbean, in terms of its narrative moments, I do like it outside of its narrative moments. There aren't really any worlds in KH3 where I look at it and go, I categorically do not want to revisit this world. Whereas I look at previous Kingdom Hearts games and there are worlds that are like that. I mean, the original Kingdom Hearts, oh boy, like, don't really like visiting Wonderland. Don't really like, well, nobody likes visiting Monstro. Not the biggest fan of Atlantica. And as much as I love Aladdin, I can't say that Agrabah's sort of the most wonderful world either. So, you've got that. Rechain of Memories was the fault of the gameplay style rather than, you know, the worlds themselves, but it's basically revisiting all the ones we've already been to. Kingdom Hearts 2.
Cannons! Let's do this!
Never look forward to visiting Port Royal at all.
I can't look!
Never really look forward to visiting Pride Lands, just because the change in gameplay style is just a bit wappy. And it feels quite as satisfying as it probably should do. I know a lot of people dread Atlantica, but that's not the one that I immediately go, I do not want to do this, largely because I just sort of have a bit of fun with the, have a lot of finny fun. And I just like the fact that, you know, we get to enjoy a little bit of the up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun, wandering free. Wish I could be part of that world. And all that jazz. I just like that we get to experience that. I have to say, admittedly, I'm also not the biggest fan of the Nightmare Before Christmas world. And I think that is just because I don't really do Halloween. And so it being a sort of like really black looking world like everything's in black and grey and orange, and I just sort of look at them and just go, it just tires me out. I feel slightly exhausted and depressed whenever I go.
And many of them quite treacherous, mate.
So,
A real pirate isn't scared to
yeah,
explore.
we've got those.
Hear my call! We've got 'em now!
Birth by Sleep. Well, it's Disney Town.
It ends here. Here we
And
go!
as much as I love Lilo and Stitch, Deep Space is not the most exciting worlds. I would have much preferred Hawaii.
Take this!
And then
Take this!
I suppose Dream Drop Distance had a pretty good run of worlds in the grand scheme of things. Whether you thought that they handled them well, not a different kettle of fish. But I don't think there's any world. I mean, I suppose Prank's Paradise a little bit. Not the biggest fan of, in part because it's the return of Monstro. Hey, because everyone wanted that. So yeah, most of those there's worlds I don't really look forward to replaying. Whereas here,
Full speed!
I would not say no to going back through most of all of these worlds, really. It's just sort of the plot elements in some of them that just rile me up a little bit. And I think, having gone through the entire game and knowing what to expect, it then means that I am not so turned off by the things that happen, because I already know what's coming. And so I'm not gonna sort of shy away and just go, ew, no, I don't want any of this. Because it's not surprising me, and therefore I can just handle it.
I smell treasure, mates.
And I smell treasure too. Maybe not a huge amount of treasure, but definitely a good few crabs.
Take this!
Definitely a little bit of treasure. And few ingredients. So yeah, actually this is a pretty good crab farming island as well, so if you're looking for crabs, this is where you come, mateys. I believe there are some harmless here as well, but none of them are turning up right now, which is not ideal. I would, like to fight them, get a bit more experience, shall we say. But that's got us up to level 6, so there's actually only 3 more levels for the Leviathan to go. But as I said, we are going to annoyingly miss out on getting to that level 9 before we're done. But it's okay. Also, there we go. Once we've opened up the treasure chest, that's when all of the Heartless come out to play. But throw up a good old bit of Thundaga, and it is all good. But yes, as I said, we will be exploring the joys of the Caribbean for a good few pots, because, it is a very big map. And not only have we got, all of the islands to explore, we've also got Port Royal, which we didn't really go over with a full fine-tooth comb. So we've got all of that to enjoy as well. And really that is quite important to get through. Because otherwise we'll just be missing out on stuff, and obviously at this point that I just cannot abide missing out on wonderful treasures and lucky emblems and everything, and you are not going to get away from me, crabs. I suppose this does open up one plot hole that I've just realised is the end of the story of the Caribbean here. Our wonderful ship ended up disappearing into a whole bunch of crabs, and then it's back as soon as we return, because of course. But hey, it's all good. So with that, I think it's time to head on to a new bit of the Caribbean. Let's go.